Happy Thursday, Geometry, and welcome to day 2 of Trigonometry. Today our goal is to solve for a missing side, given that you have a right triangle. Notice I've underlined that because it's real important. You can only do this if you have a right triangle, so look for that square in the corner, please. One angle and one side. You have to have those three things, and then you can solve for a missing side. We're still using the acronym SOHCAHTOA, which remember stands for sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine, cosine, and tangent. And here are the abbreviations for those. Today we're going to be using a calculator, so if you do not have a scientific calculator of your own, you can use your phone. You'll have to turn your calculator to the side so that it's in like horizontal mode, and then you'll see the scientific calculator. If you want to just use the internet, literally just Google scientific calculator and you'll find one that'll work, okay? But if you have your own, then that works as well. Earlier this week we talked about what is opposite, adjacent, and a hypotenuse, and then we talked about what these ratios are. Sine, cosine, and tangent are just names for ratios that can be written as fractions. So we're going to do an example today of how to solve. Here's our first example. Over there to the right. And if you don't have a place to write this down, get one. Okay. We are given that we have an angle. This is our reference angle. Our reference angle is 25 degrees. Then we have the sides. We have the side 10. You don't know what x is. Okay. Let's look at this triangle. We want to figure out which, in reference to the angle 25 degrees, what are these sides? Okay, we know that the one that's across from 90 is always the hypotenuse. It doesn't matter where the reference angle is. I would always label that first. And then looking at from 25 degrees, the one that's touching 25 is your adjacent. I'm going to abbreviate. And then this one that's across from it, not touching it, is opposite. Okay, going back. So we are given then, we have the opposite and the adjacent sides. So before we decide which ratio that we're going to use, we're going to write that down. We have that the opposite over adjacent from 25 is x over 10. I want you to write that down. Okay, now look at this right here. What is opposite over adjacent? Oh my goodness, it's tangent. So instead of now writing O over A, you figured out what that ratio is, so SOHCAHTOA tells you that you're going to use tangent. Tangent of 25 is x over 10. Eventually you'll get good at this and you can skip that step. We're not there yet. Okay. On the next example, I won't do this step, but I'm going to do it here because I think it's helpful. In your calculator, two things. First, you are going to see probably two buttons on your calculator. If you see radians is selected, we do not want that. We need degrees because we are measuring our angles in degrees. Radians is a different way to measure angles. So make sure that you have degrees showing up on your calculator, or if you're on your phone calculator and it says rad, you don't want that. You want DEG. Okay, so tangent of 25, and I'm using my phone. If you want to do this on your phone, then you would type in 25 and then tangent, which will get you 4.4663. All that is a fraction that's already been divided. So it's what the ratio actually is, just divided for you. This is actually the ratio of a similar triangle, and that's equal to x over 10. That's still the same. We want to solve for x, and so we're going to make this over 1 because it wasn't a fraction, we want it to be. And then we're going to cross multiply and solve. Guys, look, it's a proportion. We just got done with talking about similarity. these two ratios are ratios of similar triangles. This is one that we already know. Anytime you have opposite over adjacent of a triangle that's got 25 degrees, it's going to be equal to this. So here's the one we're trying to solve. Cross multiply, and you get 4.663. And that's equal to 1x, or just x. Fantastic. So you would be done. A good way to check your work, so we now know, I'm going to go back to this triangle, 4.663. We just got that this side is 4.663. If you do some quick subtraction, 90 minus 25, that would give you, oh gosh guys, 65? 65. Remember we talked about before that the shorter side should be across from the smaller angle. 4.663 is across from 25, and 10 is across from 65. So the side across from 25 has to be smaller. It is, so that's a good way to quickly check your work. We're going to do one more example, and this one is intentionally kind of tricky. Always start out the same way. Look at what you're given in your triangle, so you can decide what ratio do you have, O over H, A over H, or O over A. Based on the sides that you have, which of these sine, cosine, tangent do you need to use? Okay, zooming in. First thing I would figure out where the hypotenuse is. You look across from the right angle. This side is your hypotenuse. The other side that you're given is the one that's touching 74. So this would be your adjacent. And then this guy is your opposite, the one that's left over. All right, you have adjacent and hypotenuse. So you have to use A over H. We have that the adjacent over hypotenuse of 74 degrees in this case is 19 over x. And it does have to be 19 over x. I know this is going to make some of you uncomfortable. You can't put x over 19 because the adjacent has to go on top. Okay, let's replace this now. Adjacent over hypotenuse is cosine. So we have to use the cosine of 74. Some mathematician long ago figured out what this ratio should be anytime there's a triangle with 74 degrees. That's nice for us. Okay, if you want to go ahead and figure out what that number is in your calculator right now, you can do that. So cosine of 74 is 0.2756. And that's equal to 19 over x. Again, you're going to have to do cross multiplication. So let's cross multiply and solve. This one's a little bit different. Maybe you'll catch on why here in a second. 0.2756 x equals 19. Are you done? No, you're not. That'd be when I'd ask a question in class and you guys would say yes, and I'd say no, because x isn't by itself. So keep going. You have to divide by 0.2756, and if you still have this number on the top on your calculator, the best thing to do would be to, on this step right here, 19 divided by the answer of whatever you got for cosine. Okay, so I'm going to do that. If I do 19 divided by the answer, it's going to be about 68.93, which would be your most accurate answer. If you get 68.94, you're close. That's what you'll get if you just use 2.5 0.56 as opposed to using answer, okay? And we can check our work by going back to our triangle. 68.93 is what we have for this side. The hypotenuse should be the longest side. Well, is that side longer than the other one? Golly, it is, because the other one is 19. So that's a good clue to know that you're correct. Look back at your triangle, make sure that the side that should be longer is, and you'll know if you're right. All right, my friends, have a wonderful day and email me with questions. Your job today is to practice solving for a missing side.